Hey, how's it going? Thanks for your new submission. Let's take a look first, and then I'll go through the notes I've got for you.
Whoa, 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 boss! That chocolate cake looks kinda poisonous. You better let me eat the whole thing, just in case.
Very fun, very fun.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
One more
boss!
time.
That chocolate cake looks kinda poisonous. You better let me eat the whole thing, just in case.
Cool. So I've got a bunch of notes. Let's get stuck into them straight away. So the biggest one, I think the beats of the hand at the start and how still it is feels a bit strange. I think the best way to handle that is just to start the hand off screen completely. You have this character come in, and then maybe when they do this eye dart is around when the hand starts to come in, and then you can get it coming in, it getting to its main point, and then as soon as they scream, it pulls away, right? And I think for clarity, I wouldn't have the fork go behind the cake. So here it's going behind this silhouette. I would try and keep it so it gets really close to touching, like the silhouettes get really close to touching, and then it pulls away like, whoa, 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 boss, and he pulls away, right? And that way it's a bit clearer, like you have it to do with the silhouettes, and the silhouette's not touching, and then pulling away, and that's going to feel, you know, clearer to the audience, I think, which will be good. Cool. So that's the biggest note. The rest of it is working within what you've got here and cleaning things up. So here, after you do your nice settle here, this is working really well, I think. But you get to this point, and I think there's a few points in this where you need to push your moving holds a little bit. So you need to have like a slight drift where the ease of something continues and your curves aren't getting completely flat, which I think is happening. So from this frame onwards, you have a bigger spacing with the head settling here, but then you get completely stuck in here. So that's that needs some work, some of your moving holds. There's a point at this frame. There's a point at the end as well where you get very, very still. It's fine to get still on more stylized stuff, but just a little bit of drift, even on really stylized stuff, really helps. Cool. So there's a few eye darts in here. I'll talk about this. There's a few eye darts where you just do a one frame eye dart, which is fine. But I often like to do like a 90% on one frame and then one more frame to get to 100% in my spacing for my eye darts. So I would recommend trying that out. So this gets 90% of the way there, and then it gets the last 10% over one more frame, and that's it. And I think that's going to work. I think you can do a slight 1 or 2 frame eye compression anticipation before you open up here, and that's going to feel really nice. So it's just like a slight amount of squeeze and width and all that sort of stuff we talked about. I also think here you can choose something to lead the eyebrows as they're going up. They kind of all come up together here. So maybe you could lead with the mid eyebrows, so you get a slight ripple as things come out. I think that would be cool. Here, when you do your overshoot or over these frames where the eyes are getting smaller, it'd be cool if the eyes also kind of got closer together and did a slight inwards overshoot. Maybe what I've drawn is a bit exaggerated, but you get this slight feel of like, whoa, everything doing it together. And here, when you do this overshoot, you can get a tiny bit in the squash and stretch controller as well. And so the whole face feels connected, and you add a bit of the squash and stretch controller to that take as well, so it doesn't just feel isolated to that part of the face. Same thing here, when they look up, you can do a slight, tiny amount of squash and stretch controller, plus S and S, and a tiny bit of rotation in the head as well, like a tiny bit, like this amount, just so that when they do the eye dart, it can follow, but it can be a bit more connected. Just a tiny bit feels good. Really polishy one here where you can probably lead with all of the fingers are kind of coming down together here on the same frame, so you can choose like the pinky to lead here, for example, on this breakdown, and then the fingers come down, which will feel good. Here, during all of this part, I think you can get a tiny bit in the squash and stretch controller if you push it down. I've probably exaggerated too much in this drawing, but right now the head doesn't really squash down. And here I would continue that squash. Obviously, I've probably drawn it too much, but I also maybe translate the head down or use the neck to get the head a bit lower. You basically want to put an arc in this line at the top of the head. So that line on the top of the head is doing an arc and then into the next pose. So at the moment, it just kind of goes forward and straight and then comes up, right? So if you add that arc, then you can have that down and that strong lead out of it. And that's going to feel really strong and good. For this whole part, I think you want to lead with the elbow as it unravels here. I think right now it just kind of is very IKE, the hand leading. So I would have the elbow lead through all of this and flick it out. Cool. Something like these drawings. Obviously, you'll get the sync sketch. You can frame through this and see kind of some of the spacing that I'm trying here. Cool. Next smaller note is this arc in here is kind of, it gets stuck on this frame. Like the hand gets stuck in space a little bit. So I'd continue this arc around in a little arc and then up like you've got. Just continuing those arcs so things don't feel too IK-y. And I think for the boss, you can open the whole face, so the eyes as well. And keep the eyes open through this section. And then it's the eyes coming to compress here, right? So boss, you get like the open and the close with that accent. It all works together, the whole face. So that's the whole eye mask, not just the eyes, it's the brows as well. The brows as well. Yeah, and then you come in for the compress. Cool. For the S here, I think you can probably continue the settle here and keep it getting wider and a bit thinner. For this, like the shape of boss. I think that's going to be good. Here, your hand kind of gets really stuck in place if I frame through some of these frames. So that needs a little bit of easing in the arc of the next move to keep it from feeling completely stuck. It needs like a little bit of connection. Like when they start to move, there's like a tiny bit of connection there. That's going to feel good. Here, the eye for this pose feels a little bit too buried to me. So when you do the eye dart, I would push that bottom eyelid down a little bit more. So if the eye dart is pushing that bottom lid a little bit and feeling connected, and then it won't be as buried. A general rule of thumb is that you don't want over 50% of the eye to be buried. You need like more. If this was like them looking to the side, you know, this might be just okay. But if it was any more, like if this was the whole sphere, you know, this is over 50%. But if this got to the point where it was here, and it was buried like this with this amount, then this would be too buried and it would feel off, you know. So here it's getting a bit too buried for me. That's the note for that. Eye dart here needs to settle as well. One frame, 90%, and then 10% for the settle here. It's going to feel good. Cool. This stuff's feeling good to me. I think you're missing a cake open. Cake. So I would get this open here. And I think you can continue this, like squash and open from about this frame. This is like one shape, and then you're getting into your next shape as you're settling for that S shape here, which is, I think, is kind of missing. Cool. Here, we talk about cartoony mechanics a little bit. We basically want to leave the head almost exactly where it is and start to lead more with the body. So you get that really cool unraveling thing where the body's leading and the head is dragging behind. So I would try my best to get that, where the head is basically staying in the exact same space and you get like a nice bit of lead and follow for some of these frames. For this part, I think you can probably lead a bit more with the elbow. I didn't draw this note, but it just hit me. Maybe what I'm drawing here is a bit too much, but something in the middle, maybe. And then you unravel. Yeah, you unravel it. So that's too much, but a little bit of something there, I think it's going to make it feel a bit less IK and a bit more connected. Yeah, something like that. I like a lot of this. This is feeling good. Here, when you do this little translate one frame lead, I think that's cool, but it would be good if you get a little bit of tilt in the head as well during that lead. At the moment, it feels a bit just in the neck in the translation or whatever that's doing that. So I think that's going to feel good. So here, you're kind of twinning as the arms go back and they kind of both hit at the same time. It would be cool if you got like a little bit of one arm getting there and then the other arm in a settle, right? So if I'm side on, it's like something where you get a little bit of break up in it, where the angle of this is one frame. This is one frame later than that, and then you get like a nice bit of settling. I think that's going to feel really strong and good. Maybe like a little thinking eye dart in here would be cool as well. Like a small one. Small thinking eye dart, you hold it for like 3 frames, 4 frames, and then you do another eye dart to lead this slight change of emotion. I think it would be good. I think there's a secondary eye dart in there that can be added. And yeah, this needs a moving hold for sure. Everything just kind of hits at this point. So just want to keep things settling and easing, just in case. So things are going to continue to settle and ease. And I think the case here, your arcs, there's no arcs on the corners here, just go straight up on both corners. So you can get a little bit more arc in there. And I also think you're hitting a wall a bit on this frame. So you can keep that easing for longer and just treat the continued ease as a moving hold a bit more. And case. You can do it, but I kind of hear like a case in your sound. So I get a tiny bit of open at the end, case. Like a tiny bit after the sound, like when the s is resolved. The s is a compressed shape. So when you release the compression, that's all that's happening. It's case, and then you release the compression, it opens a tiny bit. Yeah, that's the majority of the notes I wrote there. I'm just going to look and see if there's much else. I think you can push the ooh shape for looks in here a little bit more. Looks, right? So it's this bit. Nice. I think that's going to help it for sure. I don't know if there's a way of getting a tiny bit of elbow on this frame and just cheating it. I think that's going to feel pretty good. So it doesn't just disappear on one frame. Like if you just cheat it out on this frame, so you get a tiny bit of it, could be pretty nice. Here, maybe at some point we can talk about blend shapes. We can go into Maya and we can figure it out. Maybe it's a bit more polishy, where we can get a little bit of stretchiness and drag. We talked about this last time, but I'll put the note in here again, and maybe I can do you a demo on using Anim Polish, which is a free tool, or using Maya's inbuilt shape key editor. I think it's like shape editor or something. So it would be great if when this settled, it had like a slight overshoot where it got thinner and taller, and then it settled back and got, you know, shorter and fatter, you know. Like that would be fantastic if you could get that in there. Like a tiny bit, so like follows it, feels a little bit flubby. That'd be great to get in. And I think the case, when you do case, I think you can get a small case, like a small accent in the head, just in case. Like it's a tiny thing, but it's a bit too isolated for me at the moment. So just in case, you get like a tiny, just in case. It's a tiny amount of arc, like a tiny arc in the nose for the case, I think is going to feel really strong. But yeah, I think overall you did a really good job with these notes on the last session. And I hope that these are useful for you. Obviously, feel free to ask any questions if you have any more questions about any of this. And yeah, I hope these are useful notes for you to keep going with the shot. Good luck with it. See you next time. Bye-bye.